people every time. Spree get the outlet. I used to love playing with guys. I hate playing with point guards that wouldn't throw it up. You know what I mean? Spree would always throw it up. And my father and all my boys built the game. So I flew everybody in because my father, be like, yeah, Barkley gonna get you tonight. That's all he kept saying, putting it in my head. Barkley gonna. I knew an assistant coach, and they was like, yeah, we gonna let you get yours or something to that effect. And I just remember always loving having great teammates.
Chris Webber's top 5 basketball influences tell a story that goes way beyond statistics and championships. These are the 5 players who shaped his mind, tested his body, and showed him what it really means to be great. His list isn't about the most famous names or the highest scores. It's about the specific virtues that made him who he is as a man and as a player. From his childhood heroes watched on television in Michigan to the teammates who saved his career when his body was falling apart, Webber's choices reveal something profound about basketball and character. They reveal what Webber truly values. They reveal the lessons that mattered most. Let's dive into each one, starting from the very top. If you're enjoying the story about basketball greatness, hit the hype feature and hype up this video so more NBA fans discover what really matters in the game. Number 5 is Michael Jordan, the God, the man who defined the entire 1990s era of professional basketball. For Webber, Jordan was pure worship, not just as a player, but as a cultural force. The first time they shared a floor was 1992 at the select team scrimmage before the Olympics in Barcelona. Webber was in a huddle with his college teammates, the best young players in America. The moment he realized they would actually play against Michael Jordan on the same court, he nearly cried. He was damn near crying with tears streaming down his eyes, thinking to himself, "Dog, we get to play against our heroes. How is this even real?" That's the power Jordan had on people. He could make grown athletes, elite competitors, reduce them to emotional children just by his presence. That's not normal. That's not ordinary. That's deity-level influence. The college kids actually beat the Dream Team the first day because Jordan wasn't fully locked in. The Dream Team was jogging through the scrimmage, treating it casually. But the next day changed everything about how Webber understood intensity. Jordan arrived with a completely different energy. He was no longer coasting. He treated a practice like Game 7 of the NBA Finals. He pressed constantly. He trapped on the wings. He denied passing lanes with suffocating defense. The college kids didn't score in an entire quarter. Not 1 point, 0. Webber had never experienced anything like that before. Not in high school, not in college, nowhere in his basketball life. Webber realized something profound in that moment that he would carry for the rest of his career. Talent is useless without the motor. You can have all the ability, all the athleticism, all the basketball skills in the world, but if you don't have that switch, if you don't have that willingness to destroy people with your effort and intensity, you're not truly great. Jordan showed him that intensity isn't something you turn on just for important games. It's something you turn on for everything. It's a way of life. It's a mentality. Later in his career, Webber would be criticized by some for his motor in high-pressure playoff situations. But he always knew what the standard was supposed to be. He always held up Jordan's intensity as the unreachable ideal, the standard of perfection. Jordan created the blueprint for the modern superstar. The dunk contest chains, the signature shoes, the longer shorts he requested. He made being yourself cool. He made having a distinct personality and individual flair acceptable. Webber and the Fab Five took that baton and ran with it further. There's a direct line from Michael Jordan to Chris Webber and his entire generation. Without Jordan's commercial breakthrough and cultural revolution, the Fab Five doesn't exist in the same way. Jordan is number 5 because he's the emotional peak of basketball existence itself. Number 4 is Larry Bird, the childhood hero whose reality exceeded the myth. Growing up in Michigan, Webber was surrounded by the Pistons culture, but his basketball imagination was captured entirely by something different. It was captured by Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. Bird was the poster on the bedroom wall, the pinnacle of basketball intelligence and shooting ability. But television in the 80s distorted reality in subtle ways. Commentators called Bird unathletic and slow and cerebral. This was coded language that often contrasted him with his African-American counterparts. Webber absorbed that narrative deeply. He thought he'd see a regular-sized man with a great jump shot. That's what he expected to find. Then came 1992. Everything changed for Webber. He was on the select team. At the airport in California, he saw a driver holding a sign for Bird and Webber. He would share a car with his idol, the man on his bedroom wall. Then he stood next to Bird and couldn't believe what he was seeing. Bird was 6'9", broad shoulders, massive hands. Webber is 6'10". For a young player, this realization was shocking and terrifying. It shattered the underdog myth he had built in his mind completely. Bird wasn't beating people with his mind alone. He had size, he had strength, and he had basketball brilliance on top of all that physical dominance. That's much more dangerous than television showed. Bird was also the most ruthless trash talker in NBA history. He told Webber in the car, "I hope you get your sleep tonight because I'm gonna bust your ass tomorrow." For a teenager, hearing this from a living legend was disorienting. Webber stayed silent and learned the lesson. During the scrimmage, despite his bad back, forcing him to lay on the floor during breaks, Bird dominated the mental game completely. He would announce what play he'd run, then run it anyway. Webber learned that being cool wasn't about silence or mystery. It was about supreme confidence backed by perfect execution. You can tell people exactly what you're doing, and they still can't stop you. Bird taught Webber that you could be a hero and a villain at the same time. Number 3 is Hakeem Olajuwon, the technical standard that set the bar. Every great player has a defining moment where the NBA overwhelms them for the first time. For Webber, the first overall pick in 1993, that moment came directly from Hakeem. It was Webber's first NBA game. Golden State hosted Houston. Webber entered with the confidence of a college champion. He left with the humility of a student who realized he knew nothing about professional basketball. Hakeem had 32 points on 13 of 22 shooting, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks, 59% shooting. Webber had 15 points on 6 of 15, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. The gap was absolutely clear. Webber wasn't just beaten that night. He was completely schooled. Hakeem had footwork like a soccer player because that was his background. He had the touch of a guard despite being 7 feet tall and playing center. He used the dream shake, a series of fakes and spins and pivots that left defenders jumping at ghosts. For Weber, who was supposed to be a big man with guard skills himself, Hakeem was proof of concept that this was possible. A frontcourt player could face up, could spin baseline, could fade away, could handle the ball in transition. You could be unpredictable and dynamic even as a big man. Webber borrowed heavily from Hakeem's arsenal as his career developed. The high post defense that Webber ran in Sacramento, holding the ball and reading the defense and making decisions, came directly from Hakeem's spacing principles. The principle was the same: a mobile, decision-making big man who sees the whole floor and makes the right play. That lineage traces directly back to the dream. Hakeem mentored later stars like Giannis, advising them to stay focused and avoid temptation in the NBA lifestyle. Webber views himself as part of that discipleship tradition. The beating in 1993 wasn't malicious. It was instructional. By listing Hakeem, Webber admits something important about himself. No matter how culturally significant the Fab Five were, the technical standard of excellence was Hakeem Olajuwon. That humility is recurring in all of Webber's choices. He prefers players who humbled him. Number 2 is John Stockton, the minivan man, the quiet assassin. If Iverson was the NBA's stylistic excess and flash, Stockton was its ascetic monk. Webber's fascination comes from the deep incongruity. Stockton looked like an accountant. He wore short shorts and had a standard haircut. He looked like he should work at a bank doing taxes. But Webber encapsulates the entire contradiction with one famous story: the minivan story. John Stockton came to the game literally in a minivan. He'd pop the kids out and walk in, then he'd destroy everyone on the court. Webber remembers telling rookies to watch the baddest man in the world pull up. They expected a Ferrari and a bodyguard. They got a Dodge Caravan and a dad. This lowly appearance was his greatest weapon because it lulled opponents into false security. They underestimated what they were about to face. Webber realized Stockton's lack of swag was actually the ultimate confidence. He didn't project toughness because he was genuinely tough. He didn't need to dress the part because his game did all the talking. He didn't need flash because his substance was completely overwhelming. His basketball skills were so strong and fundamental that he didn't need external validation. The 1999 playoff series between Sacramento and Utah was crucial. The Kings were flashy and fast and exciting. The Jazz were disciplined and experienced. Webber felt intimidated before it started. He decided to send a message to his team and to Stockton. He told his coach he'd lay out Stockton on the first play. Webber executed with a screen that was more assault than basketball. He drove his elbow hard into Stockton's sternum. Karl Malone felt it himself from across the court. Stockton's reaction defined him completely. He didn't flop. He didn't start a fight or retaliate. He simply adjusted his jersey, got back on defense, and ran the offense with surgical precision. He even complimented Webber directly, saying, "Hey, good job." That psychological imperviousness terrified Webber more than any retaliation ever could have. It taught him that true toughness is emotional discipline and control. How did a 6'1" guard torch a 6'10" athletic marvel like Webber? Fundamentals and geometry. Stockton beat him with angles, not speed. He was the master of the pick and roll. If Webber stepped up, Stockton slipped the pass to Malone. If Webber stayed back, Stockton hit the mid-range jumper perfectly. Either way, Stockton won the possession. He was arguably the best screen-setting guard in history. His screens freed up teammates while frustrating defenders. Weber saw in Stockton a mastery of the game's geometry that transcended pure athletic gifts. It was angles and positioning and timing and read and react. Weber's inclusion of Stockton is an admission that flash is secondary to execution. Consistency beats flash. You don't need to be flashy to be feared. Number one is Allen Iverson, the best athlete and the best teammate. The partnership between Weber and Iverson is often remembered as a disappointment, a failed experiment. But for Weber, this period was one of the most emotionally significant of his career. It's about brotherhood and what matters when winning stops. Weber joined the 76ers in February 2005 at the trade deadline. He was battling microfracture surgery on his knee, often a career death sentence. His explosive verticality was gone. He had to reinvent himself on his basketball IQ and mid-range shooting. He was joining a team defined by Allen Iverson. Iverson in 2005 was leading the entire league in scoring, averaging over 30 points per game every single night. A singular force, a one-man army battling against the giants of the Eastern Conference. The media narrative surrounding Iverson was highly polarized. He was adored by the streets and urban culture as a cultural icon, but he was often vilified by mainstream media as a selfish gunner who refused to practice and was difficult. Weber found something completely different from what the media portrayed. He found a brother. Weber states that Iverson is the best athlete he's ever seen, period. The best player he's ever played with. This requires understanding what Weber means. He's talking about functional durability and pound-for-pound power. Iverson was barely 6 feet tall, maybe 165 pounds exactly. Yet he led the NBA in minutes per game, 42 to 44 minutes per night. In the era of load management, Iverson's stamina is unfathomable. A guy driving into the paint against centers at 250 pounds. Weber marveled at this athletic genius. The ability to absorb contact, bounce back up, and do it again play after play, year after year. Weber noted that Iverson could scratch his knees from just standing because his arms are so long. His wingspan was excessive. This allowed him to play bigger. He could finish over rim protectors and disrupt passing lanes. Weber also observed that Iverson could have easily been in a dunk contest, testament to the explosive power in his legs. Iverson played with hockey pads under his uniform, not for style, out of necessity. He drove into the paint relentlessly, inviting collisions that would sideline larger players. He needed protection because his body was getting beaten constantly. Weber looked at Iverson's resilience with awe and envy. True athleticism was the ability to conquer pain and fatigue. In that regard, Iverson had no equal. The media portrayed Iverson as difficult and isolating. Weber describes him as fiercely loyal, protective, and genuinely inspiring. He was a leader who pushed people toward greatness. Weber shares an anecdote about young Lou Williams in practice. Iverson would dominate him so thoroughly that the rookie cried. But Weber frames this not as bullying, but as the highest form of mentorship. Iverson was showing Williams the intensity required to survive in the NBA. Williams chose not to quit, despite being dominated every single day. That refusal to quit, that choice to keep fighting, would inspire him to work harder and become great. For Weber personally, Iverson offered emotional salvation and grace. Weber carried guilt about his physical decline. He felt he was failing Iverson by not being the 25-point scorer of his prime. Instead of frustration, Iverson offered only support and love. He empowered Weber. He fed him the ball. He treated him with reverence due a Hall of Famer. This grace and competitive disappointment is why Weber ranks Iverson above teammates with more success. In 99 games together, Iverson averaged 32.6 points and Weber averaged 18.2. On December 22nd, 2005 against Golden State Warriors, they won decisively. Iverson had 38 points and Weber had 27 points. They combined for 65 points. On December 23rd against Atlanta Hawks, they won. Iverson put up 53 in 45 minutes. Weber had 17 in 44 minutes. Together, they clinched a playoff berth for the franchise. Their statistical output was formidable and undeniable despite the negative narrative of failure. The bond was forged in struggle where character is tested most. That's why Iverson is number one. He was the best athlete. He was the best teammate. He was the brother Weber needed. These 5 basketball players tell the complete story of Weber's entire basketball journey and life experience. From the child watching Larry Bird on television in Detroit to the veteran finding brotherhood with Allen Iverson in the twilight of his career, each player on this list represents a defining milestone in his existence. Weber's list isn't about statistics or point totals or basketball championships won. It's about character and what truly matters in the game of basketball and in life itself. These are the men who taught him who he was, who he wasn't, and who he wanted to become. They shaped his understanding of excellence and brotherhood. Like and subscribe for more stories about NBA legends and the profound connections that shaped basketball history. Drop a comment about your favorite moment from Weber's career or your own top 5 basketball influences.